then enjoyed private practice or general practice.
And did you go straight from the hospitals into Westport for general practice, or did you?
Yeah, when I finished in Temple Street, there was a Dr. Costello in Westport. He was here for a year. He had difficulty getting a house, and he rang me to say that he was moving out of Westport and that he understood that I had attempted to set up in Westport a year previously or two. So
That Val Costello.
Mick Costello.
Mick Costello,
Yeah.
but he's in Headford now, yeah?
Yeah, he has two sons practicing.
That's right. And how would you hear of Westport?
How did I, sorry?
How did you hear of Westport, or what put Westport in your head, being from Roscommon?
Well,
Were you ever here?
I was here on 3 occasions, climbing Croagh Patrick.
Yeah.
Prayed for my exam. And,
Instead of studying for it.
yeah, it was like the 10 lepers. I didn't ever went back to say thanks. But I'd be waiting for the bus in Westport and sitting on the window of the railway hotel, and it had beautiful gates and the main entrance to Westport House. And I just thought it was a beautiful town, and I said if I ever go into general practice, I'd like to do it in Westport. The fact it was so beautiful, and that I didn't know anybody in it. I had no relations. I didn't actually know anybody in Westport. I felt that would be a great help.
And when did you arrive then? Long after that? No?
I arrived on the 4th of October 1960 with the intention of staying a year, at max 2 years. And I'm still here.
In 2012.
Yeah.
And where's your first practice premises?
It was in Bridge Street in Westport. I don't know what's there. There was an electrical shop there for a while, and it's beside McCormick's butcher shop. Yeah.
What's in it now? There's a craft shop, is it?
Very narrow. It is, I think, yes.
Craft
shop. I think it's a craft shop.
And then?
Or then that wasn't practical, because I decided, well, I wasn't married, and I was getting married the following January, so I thought, well, I had to buy a bed, so I decided I would buy a double bed, the fact that I was getting married in the following January, and
Forward planning.
forward planning, but not forward enough in that we couldn't get the double bed into the place I was staying. It was so narrow. And at that time, when they were attempting to get the mattress and base in, a group of about 30 or 40 outside said, "Oh, geez, doctor, you'll have to sleep in a single bed." I had to go back up to Malloy's and get a single bed. So I then bought a house on the Mall.
That's where Stanton's is now, is it?
Yeah, there was a Dr. Murphy in it. He was a retired man who spent his life in England and returned, and he had a small practice there. He was quite happy. So I bought his house for a sum of $2,500.
It was money then. Yeah.
It wasn't a lot of money. It was about £500 or £600 more than it was worth, but it was worth it to me because of its location. So then the problem was I had to get the money. There were no mortgages at that time. And I thought, and I really thought that I had 700, possibly 800 in the bank. Because at that time you'd be doing locums and you'd be sort of lodging it wherever you were in the particular branch, and there were no bank statements or bank books or anything. So, but I was obviously spending more than I thought it was. But I always remember the figure. I had £48 in the bank, And my account was in Roscommon, in the old Munster and Leinster Bank in Roscommon. And there was a Mr. McCarthy, a bank manager, and I used to give a seat to his daughter, who was a nurse in the pool, to him, and I became friendly with him that way. And I told him that I had actually bought this house. Now, this was the day after buying it, because I didn't have the money to put a deposit on it. And I put my case to this bank manager, and I felt that I wasn't making any progress, and I then said, well, in fairness, now that I'm working in Westport, I should transfer my account from Roscommon to Westport. And I'd always remember me, the lovely man, he turned around in his chair and he said, Bert, whatever hope you have of getting this in Roscommon, you have none in Westport. You're only there for a few weeks. So that was it. So he got the overdraft. As a matter of fact, he got accommodation for 3,000. I had 500 to play with, which was great.
That's good,
That
yeah.
made a huge difference.
Give you a bit of money to play around with, yeah. And how did you stay there for? You practiced out of there, you did, yeah?
Practiced out of there for about 6 years.
Did it take long to build it up?
No, not really.
Yeah.
Not really.
Not really.
I'd say that
What other doctors were in town that time?
Dr. McGreal on Newport Road,
You there?
Dr. Tyner was here, John Hannon, Dr. Jeffers. There was a Dr. Desmond Moore, who unfortunately died as a young man.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very friendly with him, and used to cover for him and that. And he would reciprocate when his health was reasonable.
Dr. Abbott here?
Dr. Rabbit had just died.
Just died.
Just died.
Mm.
Time I came. That,
And where'd you go to next then?
about 1966, Dr. McGreal's house on Newport Road was for sale, and I bought that and moved in, and I think that was about 1966 or 67. And I was there for up to 20 years ago. I moved out here.
And you could, but you changed your practice in town. You went to another premises then, did you? Mill Street.
Oh yes, that was in 1980. Dr. Keane joined me. There was a doctor called Dr. White who was there
For 7 years.
for how many years?
7?
7 years.
Yeah.
I thought it was more. 7
7
years. And he set up on his own, and Dr. Keane then joined me as a partner in 1980. He had already been a trainee with me. And we moved to a new premises in Mill Street, the medical centre. And
You retired out of there, did you?
I retired out of there. I retired about 10 years ago.
And
That's roughly, you know.
what was it like practicing in Westport in the early days?
It was very tough, Ali. Very, very tough. Working 24/7.
A lot of
Very
calls.
poor. A lot of calls. I mean, you would find it hard to believe it, but you know, you could do up to 40 calls a day. You wouldn't be in the surgery at all. And early on, I got a radio telephone, as you were familiar with,
Yeah.
and that was a big help.
That was a huge advance at that time.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm having a little difficulty now remembering it, yeah,
But the housing situation out the country and all that was dire at times, isn't it? Very
it
bad.
was. There was a lot of poverty at the time. There was dire poverty, and you know, people are talking about the recession at present, but it doesn't. doesn't compare with what it was like in the sort of the 80s, really. You know?
People weren't very familiar with medicine and medical things, so the doctor's word was final more or less that time, was it?
Oh, it was. Yeah, that is,
No internet.
there was no internet, and there was no, you weren't challenged on Monday morning about, you know, somebody who died sort of over the weekend, and they'd have read up all about it and looked at the internet, and you didn't have really any of that. It was easy from that point of view. Of course, transport wasn't as good. The patients didn't have transport, and that was the reason why you had to do so many calls.
Or phones.
Or phones. Really. You might be just back from an area and get a call to
Drummond twice in a while.
20 miles back.
Mm.
But the people were very pleasant, and it was lovely. I don't regret 1 minute.
Did you ever get a bag of potatoes?
Oh, I did, and geese and eggs, and you name it. God, it really.
Alcohol? Any alcohol?
Oh yeah, but it was really in competition with some of them with the poteen, really. You know, they insisted that that was the cure.
Were there many medical card patients, or there weren't medical cards, what were they called, that dispensary patients at that time? What percentage of the population would be private or?
Oh, I'd say it was probably 70% in Westport, in the towns, really. You know, you'd have a higher percentage of medical care. There'd be certain areas where there'd be 100%
100%
coverage.
coverage, yeah.
But then I would say, fairness, mine was about half and half.
Half. Which was your first private fee?
My first private fee was 10 shillings.
10 shillings.
Yeah. And the doctors in Westport were considered expensive at that time, because you could get a surgery consultation in Swinford for 5 shillings in other places.
And why were the Westport doctors so expensive? Was there ever an explanation for that?
No, I think
Was there no
it's something that doctors coming after me that they
maintained?
They maintained this. I couldn't see any great reduction.
I think Westport was always an upmarket kind of a place, wasn't it? Oh, that was the... Yeah.
Ended up at it was considered a sort of sophisticated place. I suppose, but the 10 shillings didn't last for a while, and strangely enough, the surgery fee at Farrell, I can remember, went from 10 shillings to £1.
But it probably was 10 shillings for a long time.
It was 10 shillings every year.
That's what used to happen.
Yeah.
See,
but it
nothing
was
had happened.
It was 100% increase.
What's the biggest change you've seen in practice over the years?
Well, I would say with GPs, they have far better equipment now. The communication, you know, with hospitals and everything is much better.
Much better.
And, I can't see any great change in medical treatment, such as the drugs and that type of thing. In my time, I think the greatest discovery was the statins.
Yeah.
Group of drugs. I think that's, you know, the biggest change. You know, medication hasn't changed that much, you know. Diagnosis, yes, there's a great improvement in the surgical field of orthopedics and cardiovascular surgery and that.
And
big changes there.
done much quicker as well now, aren't they?
That's right.